And this implosion will lead to an absolute wipeout of global stock markets and much worse. How you doing, guys? This is Eric from RuleTheWasteland.com. I always try not to be too dramatic in these videos, but as you've seen over the past several months, 2 years, whatever, we're definitely entering a time where serious things, serious shit the fan scenarios are getting more and more likely than they were even, I don't know, and at any other time in my life, that's for sure. And it's always wild to look back because, like, you know, as a prepper, you always see these different things crop up, you know, and people get all like, ooh, dramatic about it and thinking that this is going to be the big one. But at some point, some of these things are likely to happen. And one of those is an economic collapse, specifically a failure in the debt markets, the debt system. And that's different than specifically a failure in the stock market or any particular asset class, because it is literally the biggest bubble of them all is the debt bubble and the derivatives that are related to that. And so for those of you who don't understand, really, like I've mentioned many times on this channel, our fiat system of dollars, almost every fiat currency or currency in general out there, but specifically the US dollar, is debt-based. That means it is an instrument of debt. There's always more debt in the system than there is dollars to pay it off. And then beyond that, there's all the instruments and derivatives that are related to that and based on that, financial instruments that are treated as wealth. Like basically when you take the value of the economy, the GDP, all this stuff, they're including all these instruments that are not physical wealth. They are not first order wealth, as Chris Martenson calls it, which are real resources that come from the earth. They're just financial instruments. So, you know, any of these derivatives related to debt, bonds, all these different types of things. So that eventually is going to fail, that entire bubble of the derivatives, which is like quadrillions of dollars technically outstanding in derivatives, and eventually it's going to go boom. And unfortunately, we could be seeing the beginnings of that right now. I really love Gregory Mannarino's channel. I've talked about him a lot. He has been accused of being a perma bull because every time people like Robert Kiyosaki and others have been like, oh, the crash is coming, he said, look, there's no crash coming. They're going to inflate this thing to kingdom come. We'll know when the crash is going to come because we're going to see simultaneously dropping in the stock market and a spike in the 10-year yields, because that shows a lack of confidence or in specifically the debt markets. And he just came out and has some warnings about that the debt implosion may have begun. So I'll read you it's a very great, if you're not in his newsletter, I suggest you apply to it or subscribe to it, but I'll read you the most recent one he sent out. It says, anyone who's even remotely familiar with my work is already well aware of the fact that I believe the world today now exists under the threat of an implosion in the debt market. And this implosion will lead to an absolute wipeout of global stock markets and much worse. Let us first define what the debt market is. It's where debt securities are bought and sold, and these debt securities exist mostly in the form of bonds. The bond market is also known as the debt market, fixed income market, or the credit market. Generally speaking, when people make reference to the debt market, they're speaking about the trade, swaps, and issuance of debt securities, which also include mortgages, which are then called mortgage-backed securities. The debt market also includes derivatives bond futures. Bond futures are financial derivatives which are bought and sold on the open market and obligate the contract holder to purchase or sell a bond on a specified date at a predetermined price. Debt instruments offer a fixed payment to the holder. Moreover, the debt market, at least in theory if managed correctly, is responsible for the proper functioning of world markets and the economy. The absolute fact of the matter is the debt market today has become a weapon of mass destruction, being hyperinflated by runaway central banks who continue to use the debt market as a method to inflate. And as a brief aside, I've talked about this before, that there is only one way up, and that's the only weapon they have is inflation, which is why after an implosion, we're likely to see a melt up. Continuing with what Mannarino says, capital itself is a debt instrument, like I mentioned. When a central bank issues currency, it is also known as credit or debt. Every single printed bill or digit simply added to a screen by a central bank is a unit of debt, like I said. These units of debt are owned by the issuing central bank and are owed back to the issuing bank plus interest, which is issuing central bank then creates out of thin air. Every single day brings the world closer to the moment when a meltdown in the debt market will occur. We've known this was guaranteed from the moment this system was created. A debt market meltdown implosion will cause bond yields to spike rapidly in an uncontrolled manner, and this in turn will put enormous pressure on the world stock markets, which will then sell off very rapidly. Credit debt markets will lock up, and all transactions will stop. Result, the grand finale. Total pandemonium in the streets around the world, with people looking to the same entities which cause this to happen for help. So that, like I said, that's the big one, basically. And what we would look at as a sign is the market's crashing and the 10-year yield spiking. Well, 10-year yields are starting to go up today, and he seems to think that this could be the start of that meltdown. And if it is, we will continue to see the 10-year yields rapidly spike up. Hopefully that's not the case and we have a little more time, but we know it's coming eventually. We know we're closer than we've ever been in history. And this is the first time I've heard Gregory Mannarino actually say this could be it. Every other time he's been like, it's fine, you know, like the markets are going to continue to go up, they're continuing to print, blah, blah, blah. So this is the first time that he's been this spooked about it. And he's been pretty right about everything up till this point. But what can you do about it? So obviously if we know that the debt system is what's going to implode, then we have to get out of that system. So anything outside of that system is a better bet. Now, initially, in this global what he calls a pan crash or whatever, pan sell-off, there's going to be an initial panic because people don't understand the system the way that Mannarino does, the way that you and I do. So when they see everything tanking, they're just going to go out of everything into cash. So initially, we'll probably see the dollar retain some strength. Cash isn't necessarily a bad place to be short term because all these things will spike, probably even including the paper price of gold and silver, all cryptos, the entire stock market, etc. But I would not sell any of those things right now anticipating that because all the real assets will recover. So I'm not a financial advisor, obviously, but my plan is for whatever assets I have is to make sure, obviously, physical gold and silver is great. I think that having a decent cash position right now is a great idea, including a physical cash position. And a physical cash position is important because if we ever talk about a total system lockup, everything like credit card system, the online banking system, the banks themselves, the accounts could be frozen before everything gets shaken out. So you want the ability to buy things face to face even, and potentially get great deals on things. So having a decent cash position, having a commodities position, anything that's an actual real first order wealth, so land, commodities, even if those are commodity stocks, you will see those stocks go down, plummet along with everything else in this initial pan sell-off. But you know, the companies that are related to physical things, mining, agriculture, oil, whatever, those could easily be the ones that recovered. If any recovered, those will be the ones because those are the things that are important. But things outside the dollar system, so foreign stocks could be a big one. I mean, they're going to go down too if we see the debt market implode because this affects every country on the planet. But it's going to get ugly. And obviously food, water, shelter, protection, medicine are the most important things, especially if you don't have a significant amount of money, because if the dollar, if this whole currency system collapses, everything is going to be super expensive and or impossible to get. It's going to get gnarly. Hopefully this isn't the big one, but it's definitely already the start of it. We're closer than we ever have been, and it is going to happen eventually, so we need to be prepared for it. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll talk to you soon.